So Andrew Wilson is at the center of another wild moment where a woke idiot seemed to crash out in real time, and the unhinged meltdown that followed proves just how much pressure Andrew Wilson is putting on the narrative. Now, without lifting a finger, the way Andrew Wilson responds to bad faith attacks has people online saying that, he's one of the few refusing to bend to the usual activist noises. And also audiences are replaying this clip also because Andrew Wilson stayed calm while the other side just went, which basically completely unraveled. So people are calling this like basically a perfect example of how, the corporate media loses control the second someone like Andrew Wilson doesn't play along. So here's an Andrew Wilson debating in this woke idiot. And believe you me, this is crazy. If you were to look at the woke idiot's bedroom, it's a complete mess. It looks like it. So let's go ahead and get right into it.
As fast as you can to increase your odds of getting
Sorry,
in.
I'm just such a fan of Andrew.
No, that's okay.
He's like, I'm not a conservative, but like he like to me, like he's like big pop fascist. Like I'm sorry, he debated Destiny. He beat a Destiny, by the way, in my opinion. I'm such a fan of him.
Hold on. We don't need all this. Hang on.
Oh,
you can say whatever you want in your opening statement, I promise. We did discuss backstage that food shops will be going first. Each debater is going to get 7 minutes for an opening statement, followed by roughly an hour to an hour and a half of open dialogue. And then each debater will get 7 minutes for a closing statement, at which point we'll go to Q&A. Food shops, like I said, you're going to be going first. So whenever you're ready, you have 7 minutes on the clock for your opener.
Yeah, okay, sure. So the way I define patriarchy is a social system in which positions of dominance and privilege are primarily held by men. The way I define dominance is power and influence over others, and privilege is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person group. And, so conservatives have been arguing, that people of both genders have become less and less happy over time. Well, that's perfectly understandable, especially to people like Andrew who scowl all the time, in which one of the reasons is due to, a diminishing patriarchy. Also understandable. Okay, totally agree with that. And that we need to return to a more traditional lifestyle. In this debate, I will critique and undermine Andrew's claims of his support for patriarchy and generally support the belief that patriarchy is becoming more and more outdated. I have no problem with men working more, quote unquote, more masculine jobs and women working, quote unquote, more feminine jobs when they both naturally gravitate towards these jobs due to physical constraints, only if given equal opportunity. And, all in all, I think a beautiful part of human existence and history is transcending your limits like an anime, okay, beyond gender and beyond physicalities. It seems to me that there doesn't seem to be that much of a substantial use or that much of a good argument for patriarchy, since it's becoming outdated, because at the end of the day, patriarchy is just another limit of human existence. Okay, and opening statement, that's it.
All right, thank you. You do have like 5 more minutes on the clock if you want.
No, that's fine. I can see the rest of 5 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. Andrew, whenever you're ready, you got 7 minutes on the clock for your opener.
It wasn't an argument.
Oh yeah. Whatever. Just go. No.
Do you want to just concede time too, and then you guys just go into open dialogue? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah. The as we move farther.
Hang on. I asked Andrew.
Here, hang on. Let me use the language you're the most familiar with. Do you want to totally kind of give me a argument? Can you give me an argument? Can you do that?
Well, my argument.
Can you do that? Doesn't give me a argument.
My argument, I'll tell you. My argument is that the farther we move from patriarchy, the better it seems like society seems to be. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, so the better we move from patriarchy, the better off society seems to be.
Yep.
That's the argument. Okay, from your opening statement. Okay, so I'll do my opening statement now.
All right, go ahead. You got 7
minutes. His definition of patriarchy, social dominance held by men. I don't dispute the definition. I think it's fine for the purpose of this conversation and debate. He immediately opened up with a straw man, said most conservatives want to argue about blank. I don't give a shit what most conservatives want to argue about. He says patriarchy is limited. That's the point. It's supposed to be limited. And he says that it's better that we move away from patriarchy is kind of the crux of his argument because, it's limiting, right? Or something like this, right? Or I guess in his worldview, the more patriarchal society is, the less happy it tends to be. Some nonsense like this, which I'm sure he'll provide 50,000 ergotron studies for, but it's all beside the point. So I'll take this time to just open with a very keyed-in argument for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who enforces the rights of women?
I don't know. You tell me. You're the one who's giving the
question.
You're the one who's giving.
I'm
the
done with the
argument.
opening. I'm done with the opening.
Oh well, you never told me. So
So
whatever.
open dialogue starting now.
Yeah.
Both
Who
sides
enforces the rights of women?
I guess state authority, I guess.
And that would be comprised the main body of the enforcement arm of state authority of which sex?
I guess primarily by men.
By men. Men are the enforcers of rights. Women are not the enforcers of rights. Men can enforce their own.
Primarily by men.
Let me finish and then I'll let you talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
Men are the enforcers of rights. Women are not the enforcers of rights. Women cannot successfully enforce their own rights and have never been able to successfully enforce their own rights. They have to rely on men to do so. Therefore, the descriptive is that you will always have a patriarchy, no matter how much of your egalitarian you want to move towards, you can't escape it. You might say it's limited, but you can't transcend it, because if men decide tomorrow women have no rights, they don't.
How do you define patriarchy by your own definition?
I just said that for the purpose of this debate, it's absolutely fine to use the definition you gave.
So my definition for patriarchy is a social system in which positions of dominance and privilege are primarily held by men. You accepted this definition, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to privilege, a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group, yes?
No, it doesn't. That's not what your definition says.
No, I said that
your definition said primarily.
No. So in my opening statement, I said that in my opening statement. Did you listen?
Yeah, but the definition that, as you described it right here, it just says primarily held by.
No. In my opening statement, I said that specifically in my opening statement. I read it right off.
Okay,
privilege,
well then,
a special right, advantage, or immunity granted only or
then
available
I will
only.
dispute. Then I will dispute this definition and say
very well.
Primarily.
All right. So let's be very clear here. I said only, but since in the police force we know that there are women police officers, right? And since you said that the state has police officers that are, again, I accepted that there are mostly men, there are women police officers. Sure, that in the enforcement arm there are women police officers. I would say that this is already a point against you. Would that be correct?
No.
Yes, this is already a point against you.
How is it a point against me? I just said that
because there are women police officers, and women police officers are in the enforcement arm.
Listen. Let's try this again.
Oh, okay.
Read your definition again.
Okay, patriarchy is a social system in which positions of dominance and privilege are primarily held by men. Dominance.
Hang on. The word there is primarily, yes?
Yes, primarily held by men. But then I go into two of these two words, okay? Position of dominance and privilege. Dominance is defined by power and influence over others.
Yeah, and that's primarily held by which group?
Yeah. But then,
and enforcement is primarily held by which group?
Yeah, but then I'm going to define privilege for you, okay?
Yeah, it doesn't matter who.
That is the word.
However you define those two words with a very keyed-in argument. However, Spurgatron, however you define those two words, it doesn't matter.
I'm very calm right now, Andrew. I'm very calm right now.
The word is primarily.
I'm going to define privilege, okay? A special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available. Again, this is in my opening statement. I wrote this down, okay? A special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available. Do you concede this point? Or available only to a particular person group.
No, I conceded to the definition.
Do you admit that you weren't listening?
No, I conceded to only the definition that you gave.
So you conceded to the definition that I gave in my opening statement when I say available only.
You said primarily, the definition, you just read it again, that it's positions of dominance held by men, primarily
held by men.
Yes.
Right?
So there's no dispute there. That all those positions are, as you just admitted, primarily held by men. You lose.
I mean, this dude did state that it was held by men and stuff. I mean, there's like there's one thing that's not considered in this discussion or this debate, and it's like the disadvantages or the counterpoints against, of like of patriarchy itself. You know, I mean, that's the crazy thing about it, because of the fact that nowadays, it's like, so many things where men are at a disadvantage today, to the point where the last decade, it was where those of the opposite sex have had better benefits, stating that they stated, for example, you know saying it's okay for a woman to hit a man, but it's not good for a man to hit a woman. I mean, that right there is a huge double standard where people just throw logic out of the window. Okay, so that logic is gone basically, but they don't care about logic. They don't care about law. It's just a simple fact that, for them, it's only right for a woman to hit a man, but not a man to hit a woman back. That's okay, of course, one example and stuff. But at the same time, there's plenty of other examples out there. But the fact of the matter is that, Andrew Wilson did it, for the sake of argument, as Andrew Wilson said, that, the definition of patriarchy is what this woke idiot over here has stated, as you all remember. And at the same time, if you think about it, Andrew Wilson does have a point and stuff. See, because a lot of people out there who argues, accusing everything of like patriarchy, this, patriarchy, that, and all of that. I mean, let's be real. They have to admit that things are dominated, primarily by men. But at the same time, it's like it was men who actually gave women these rights, because of the fact that, back then they were men who were elected into office and stuff that gave women the right to vote and several other rights. Okay. And then it was also men who went on ahead to enforce these laws. So if it wasn't for, men, then that means that, the whole patriarchy argument is definitely just flawed. And it's like, and this dude's already lost the debate and everything. But at the same time, I mean, where's the accountability? Okay. Because no one's willing to take accountability when they're arguing, against that which they accuse of being the patriarchy and stuff. Okay. Because in order for them to go ahead and actually hold themselves accountable, that means that, they have to go ahead and live according to the same things and standards that men are facing. But then again, that's the kind of equality that they don't want.
Well, I mean, I said available only. I said available only, right? I said available only.
Patriarchy, right? Already, and you say people are getting happier. That's awesome, bro.
I mean, which part? Which part do you particularly dispute here, right? Like you didn't know which one like you particularly like dispute. I don't get it. Like,
what's there to dispute? Here's your argument.
Mm-hmm.
I think, according to you, you say society is getting happier. And then you gave a definition of patriarchy, and in your definition of patriarchy for why patriarchy is bad, you say it's because the positions of authority are primarily held by men. But in all these happy societies you point to, all those positions are primarily held by men. Therefore, all those societies. Shut up. Let me finish. Therefore, all those societies have to be patriarchies by this definition. That's it. That's the argument. You're done.
Yeah, but your argument is that we necessarily need a patriarchy, right?
When did I argue that? When did I argue it? You're pivoting, bro. The debate's over already.
No. My argument.
Nowhere to go from here.
My argument is that as we're moving away farther and farther from a patriarchy, things tend to generally become better, right? That's my argument.
Wait a second. Back up.
Yeah.
You are admitting that we exist in a patriarchy and people are getting happier, right? Because of patriarchy, the entailment under your definition is just that most of the positions of enforcement and positions of power and authority are primarily held by men.
Can I appeal so then I can at least finish what I'm saying?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, yes, I can understand that we live in a patriarchy, right? But then primarily, if positions of dominance are held by men, right? Sure, I can agree that positions of dominance are held by men, but then it seems like these kinds of systems where men are holding more dominant and leadership positions are becoming less and less more important, right? They're becoming less and less important. Meanwhile, we can see, rates like, okay, women going to colleges are like rising, right? Women are becoming more and more prominent. Like, for example, women in politician roles are like rising up, right?
All that's happening under the benevolent
wait,
patriarchy?
let me finish. Moderator, can I appeal to the moderator?
Yeah, okay,
So,
listen. You can finish, but try not to go on too long because this is an open dialogue.
Okay, sure. Okay, so we can basically we can see women in leadership positions like taking up leadership positions, right? And just overall, it just seems like to me that we really don't need men in patriarchal positions.
So it
anymore,
seems like
or
to you.
positions anymore
So it
at
seems
all.
like to you that the
Hang on. So this dude just basically argued that, quite frankly, let's call it what it is. It's not, men, it's not about women being equal to men. It's just women versus men. Okay. And see, this view is arguing that framing, this as is just basically framing it as a men versus women thing. And that misses the real antagonist, which is what that so-called impersonal system they're talking about of production modes, which just basically it just like oppresses both sexes, and nothing evolves over time and stuff. Okay. So definitely it's just like a lot of things like wrong with this particular argument, where they're stating that they're deriving away from the patriarchy is making things better. There's the internal contradictions where the feminists are claiming that women are equal but vulnerable, because feminism is always accused of core inconsistency by basically asserting that women's full equality and independence from men, while at the same time trying to portray them as, inherently vulnerable, if you will. So but that just basically requires special protections like through government policies or on campus, SA, for example. Okay. So this definitely undermines the theory where if women are truly equal, then why enforce unequal safeguards that assume male predation? In other words, assuming that men will actually come after them. Okay. I mean, if you think about it, that's not necessarily equal. Okay. Because guess what? Men are also vulnerable from against other men. Okay. And there's also been studies where men who's been assaulted by other men in sexual nature and in sexual manner and everything by force, that's rising or happening more often and stuff than reported. Okay. It's just no one wants to talk about that. But at the same time, people argue that this comes from rejecting natural gender differences, promoting casual sex and liberation as paths to equality, but then demanding institutional interventions to actually mitigate these resulting risks, basically effectively reinforcing vulnerability as a female trait. But in reality, men are just as vulnerable, if not more. And that's something that the woke left refuse to talk about because, well, that's going to be against their narrative.
Benevolent patriarchy is allowing all these women to have all these great and wonderful positions within society, and that society's most key positions are. Shut up! It's my turn. I didn't interrupt you. Shut up.
Yeah, he did let you finish, so let Andrew finish.
Shut your mouth. You're saying that you just love and adore the fact that society right now exists under a patriarchy by your own definition, and it's so benevolent that it's even letting these broads who it could oppress if it wanted to do all of these great and wonderful things, and it's making society happier. Well, I mean, that's awesome, man.
Okay, so I'm gonna finish. Okay, so the problem with that is that obviously what is your appeal? How is it that your assumption is that men is letting women allow in these positions? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I would argue that is not specifically a case of gender. I would actually say that it is more of a case of power, right? For example, there are lots of women leaders, right, that are in positions of power
who appeal to men to enforce their authority.
Yeah, but it's not.
Men
But it's
don't-
not a particular case.
No,
of, like,
it's
physical
always the
power.
case. Always.
It's not a particular case of physical power.
What
It doesn't
enforces
really.
your position
For example,
without physical
for
force?
example, how do you explain away that women judges are basically locking away men to death sentences? Then how does that make any sense to you?
What does that have to do with anything? They are
It has
appealing.
everything to do with anything.
Judges,
everything, right?
judges are not the enforcement arm. That would be the.
They are absolutely.
Shut
the
up.
enforcement.
Let me finish.
I'm countering you
You
directly
have
before
to
you go off
stop.
on another tangent.
Bro, you have to
Okay,
stop
all right,
talking.
I'm writing your points down. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, judges have to appeal to police officers, and they have to appeal to jailers, and they have to appeal to all of these different people to actually enforce their will. Judges do not make a ruling and then go enforce it, do they, dummy? Who enforces it for them? Would you say primarily the sex that enforces a judge's ruling would be male or female if you had to guess?
Okay, sure. The thing is, I can totally understand is that at the end of the day, sure, the people who hold the all right, are absolutely male officers, majority male officers, right? But the thing is that at the end of the day, physical strength, at least in modern society, is not a big deal anymore. That's the thing, right? Because at the end of the day, we have, right? Because isn't the whole point behind like conservatives is that are the great equalizer between physical strength, right? Because if a woman can handle a gun correctly, right? Can't a woman a man and be done with? You know, in Indiana Jones, you know, like that one scene where like the one guy was like waving around the sword and then Indiana Jones like the guy and then he just drops dead, right? The thing is that sure, women judges are the one.
I can't.
Hold on.
I can't do it.
Andrew, wait, let me finish.
You're
let you
so
finish.
dumb. I
You
can't even
finish.
take it.
Hold
I
on.
can't even take it, bro.
I don't want to hear it from a fourth grade.
Yeah, it's all fucking. You know, like when Indiana Jones got his whip and he went to the Temple of Doom. You remember when Indiana Jones went to the Temple of Doom and Kali was there and said,
"You debate like a fourth grade porn star. You debate like a fourth grade. You look like one too, okay? So let me finish my point. Okay, let me finish my point. Sure, it's true.
Finish your Indiana Jones point.
Sure, it's true that female judges, have to at the end appeal to a majority male police force in order to bring the murderers to prison. I totally agree with that, right?
So the foundation of society is patriarchy.
Hold on, let me finish because I let you finish.
I'm never gonna finish.
Because at the end of the day,
finish.
Right. But
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you. As cringe as this debate was and everything, of course, Andrew Wilson definitely made this dude not only admit defeat, he definitely made this woke idiot crash out. Okay, so Andrew Wilson's definitely got the upper hand here because guess what? I mean, let me be real. I mean, Andrew Wilson, though he doesn't really he always argue against the feminist assertion of the term patriarchy and everything, but at the same time, he used this argument proving that, a society that's just usually dominated by men, it would make things a bit better off. I mean, yes, there's a few bad apples here and there, but at the same time, I mean, it's not a matter of, women, like I said earlier, women being equal to men. It's a matter of women versus men, where basically these activists and woke idiots like this dude right here are trying to go ahead and make women even more dominant. I mean, you can easily tell he doesn't even have a shred of masculinity in him. And Andrew Wilson basically I can't believe this dude's definitely used this argument against Andrew Wilson with an example from an Indiana Jones movie, a fictional movie and stuff, with a fake weapon in the movie, by the way. That was just a prop. And the fact that, yes, women out there do bear arms. They also have the right to bear arms. But at the same time, it's like, at the same time, that's not a matter of, proving that, the patriarchy is wrong and everything and society's better off without men and everything and stuff. Let's be real here. A society without men will lead to chaos. Okay, I'm not saying that in a chauvinistic view or sexist view and stuff, but if you think about it, actually, if you're a woman watching this, ask yourself, would you want to live in a world full of women and stuff without any men, where there's nothing but chaos and stuff, where you're definitely disliking someone else and stuff who you do things trying to take control, but in reality, you're trying to take control of stuff as well? But when it comes to men, I mean, when certain tasks needs to be done, we know who can do what, who has the strength, who doesn't have the strength for it, and stuff. We respect each other's roles to get the task done, and usually a solution is being brought. Okay, so basically, Andrew Wilson has definitely stated the obvious thing using logic and stuff, but at the same time, I mean, when it comes to people like this guy debating Andrew Wilson or others like him, I mean, logic just goes out the window. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below on this Andrew Wilson clip, and I'll see you on the next.